Imagine you're shooting a destination wedding for loads of money. You're on a beach, you hear the waves crashing, you look down into your hand to see what camera you're holding, and I can assure you it's not going to be any of the cameras I'm going to mention in this video. You got to have some realistic expectations, but with $300 you can put together some compelling kits. For sports and action, you're going to want a telephoto zoom and the best autofocus system you can afford. A prime lens and a flash are what's going to be important for portrait photography, while a kit zoom lens is going to be perfect for learning the basics of photography. If you're specifically interested in birds, take a look at the bridge cameras. For cute glowy pictures, the Canon G7 look, you want a premium point and shoot. Camcorders and action cameras are going to be pretty boring because all of the recommendations are going to be very similar to those I recommended for cameras under $200. And if you want an all-weather rugged camera, there's the Olympus Tough TG5 or TG6. All the cameras, lenses, and any other gear I mentioned will be linked in the description, along with affiliate links to what I think are the best value picks. And I'm going to start each section off with those. For instance, the Nikon D5200 is currently the best sports and action camera under $300 because of its 39-point autofocus system. It can blast away at a blazing 4 frames per second, but pair it with a Nikon 55-200 zoom, and you'll want one with VR. There are 3 versions. The cheapest version doesn't have that, and that's vibration reduction, which is Nikon's name for optical image stabilization. That's going to help you get sharp shots when you have it zoomed all the way out, you're on the sidelines blasting away. You're going to want that feature, even though I used a poor example to demonstrate that. For a little bit more money, you'll be able to get the 55-300, which on the surface seems like it would be 100 better, but it's actually 150 better. Or a Nikon 70-300, and you're going to want the AFS version. The AFP version has some compatibility issues with the D5200, and there is an earlier AF version that will not autofocus on the D5200 because it does not have a built-in autofocus motor. And I could go on for a long time because Nikon did not do a very good job of ensuring backwards compatibility with their cameras and lenses. Regardless, with any of those lenses, you're going to be out shooting anyone with a phone and having more fun while doing it. And the front-facing flippy screen is going to make it possible to go low for some added drama or get that camera above crowds so you can get that shot. And if it is still good, along with the other cameras that I'm going to talk about, the D5200 was released in 2013 for $900 with an 18-55 kit zoom lens. To put that into perspective, adjusted for inflation, it's $1,290, which is more than enough to buy a brand new Nikon Z52. It's going to be a good DSLR experience, and it'll be up to you to decide if you like it or not. And it's not a big deal if you don't, because these cameras are very easy to resell. Like with buying any used camera, look for clean bodies, lenses with clear glass, and shutter counts under 50,000. If you want to record video, the 1080p 30 is going to be good enough for social media. For long-form YouTube, you might want to upscale that to 4K, but the real issue is that the built-in mic is not going to be good enough on it, or really any of the cameras I'm going to mention. You're going to want a standalone solution. I like my Zoom F2. I think it works well enough, and I like that it uses AAA batteries. I avoid devices with built-in batteries because they're going to turn into e-waste within 2 years. If you're looking for an easier buying experience, there is the Nikon D3300. It doesn't have a fully articulating front-facing screen, and the autofocus isn't as good as the D5200, but you'll have a much easier time finding it with an 18-55 and a 55-200 millimeter lens for under $300. But one of the things I don't like about the entry-level DSLRs, they generally have penta mirrors, so we're looking through the viewfinder. It's really not that large. It's not the best experience that you can get because they also aren't made to be used with the screen. You got to be looking through the viewfinder, and that's what that flappy mirror's for, which is why I prefer former professional DSLRs. This is a 5D Mark II, and it has a pentaprism. Looking through the viewfinder, it's much larger and more enjoyable, which is why I prefer them for photography. And finally, there's the D7000, which may be an option. The real selling point on that camera is that it has an in-body focus motor. That is going to allow you to have autofocus with some of the older film era Nikon lenses, like a 50 1.8D or a 50 1.4D, and those are going to be ideal for portraits, though I would avoid the camera for any sort of fast action. So overall, I think that the Nikon APS-C DSLRs are currently the best value under $300. They're like maybe $50 to $75 better than some of the alternatives. Probably the best alternative for video is going to be the Panasonic GH3. It's a mirrorless micro four thirds camera, and it has significantly better video features than you'll find on the D5200. I would avoid using it for photography as it has contrast detection, autofocus, and that's the same with video, but all the cameras are going to have that, so the additional video features are nice. If you want to save some money, you can get a GH2 and try to track down the modified firmware that increases the bit rate that it can record at. But it's hard to overlook the GH4, which can record 4K, which is a little bit more useful. There are lots of great small micro four thirds lenses, especially primes, which is going to give you a small video kit if you want that. And they're fairly inexpensive, especially compared to their full-frame counterparts, because there are not a lot of prime APS-C lenses around. There is the GF7, but the screen only flips up, which is going to be a problem if you want to use a shotgun mic on the camera. I really wouldn't. I don't think that the video you would get out of it is going to be very good because there's no stabilization. It seems like the main idea behind the screen was to use it to take selfies. If you're looking to get one, I would suggest trying to get it paired with the 12 to 32 millimeter pancake zoom. It's a really fun lens. It's impressive at how small it is. For Canon, the top choice is probably going to be the Rebel T5i. 18 megapixels, 9 focus points, and it can shoot at 5 frames per second. It has a front-facing flippy screen, so if you put Magic Lantern on it, you can get very good video out of the camera. It's just in a tough position because for like $250 for a body, you can get a 70D, which has dual pixel autofocus in video, which is going to be a huge upgrade over what the T5i offers. But at the same time, I don't think you're finding it with a lens for under $350, which is going to blow the budget. The other camera would be the Rebel T6i. It sees improvements across the board, a 24.2 megapixel sensor, 19 autofocus points, and it can still shoot 5 frames per second. And the one camera I would look to avoid would be the T6, the 1300D. It is basically a T3i without a flip out screen. So it's not necessarily a bad camera, it's just that I think they are overpriced for what you get. Because if you can buy an older camera for less money that has better features, I think you're much better off doing that. You can, of course, look locally because that's where you're going to find the best deals. You might be able to find one really cheap, in which case, oh yeah, definitely pick it up. The Sonys, I don't think that they have a lot to offer. You throw another $100 on the budget and they get significantly better. The two to look out for are the SLT A65 and SLT A58. I have a video going over the SLT cameras. It's single lens translucent. It's kind of a hybrid between mirrorless and a DSLR. They have phase detection autofocus, which is good, but they're a little bit older and the video specs don't really cut it. With both of those cameras, I think it maxes out at like 1080 I60 with a bit rate of like 24 megabits per second, which I think you can do a little bit better. Those, of course, use A-mount lenses, and those have been discontinued along with the mount. If you want something that uses the current E-mount, there is the Sony a5000, and its video specs are very similar to the SLT cameras. It also uses contrast detection autofocus for photos and video, whereas the A5100 has 179 phase detection points, and it doubles the bit rate that it can record video at, making it a significantly better camera for photo or video. From Olympus, there are two cameras in the Pen series, the EP3 and EPL5. They're going to be hard to find in the US as they were focused on the Japanese market, I believe probably towards Japanese women. And my problem is I had an EPL6 and I wear large nitrile gloves when I need to, and I found the bodies to be a little too small to be comfortable to hold and to use all the menus and the really small buttons on them. So they might be more appealing to you if you have small hands. The other issue is that they use contrast detection autofocus, which is not my favorite, and I generally avoid cameras with that. I always think if you want an Olympus camera, you want to jump in with an EM1 or a newer camera with phase detection autofocus. It'll be a much better experience. EM1's like $500, so maybe skip out on Olympus until that is in your budget. If you want some fun, you can hunt down a 4/3 DSLR that preceded the micro 4/3 cameras. You want to look for the Evil E3. It was the second to last flagship released. The E5 was the last flagship, and it's like $500. For a brief period of time, Samsung was releasing APS-C mirrorless cameras, the NX series, and you can get the second best one, the NX30. And it's one of the newest cameras as it was released in 2014. There's also the NX Mini, which is interesting because of the small size, and it comes in pink, which can be hard to find. And there are other models like the NX300 or NX3000 that might be worth looking for. I think they're impressive looking cameras because of how small Samsung was able to make them. From Pentax, it's a lot of the same with what I mentioned in the under $200 video. You got a K5, a K5 II, and possibly a K50. They all have 11 autofocus points, and it's nothing really to write home about. These cameras are what you want to look for if you want cheap weather sealing on the camera body and the lenses, because a lot of the lenses will have the WR marking, meaning weather resistant. With that said, I have very little interest in the cameras. They tend to be quite a bit larger and heavier than the competition, but there is also the Pentax Q series, which can be kind of fun because they're cute little DSLRs. The Pentax Q7 has a 1/1.7 inch sensor, and the Q10 has a smaller 1/2.3 inch sensor. That's basically what you'll find in a cell phone, though some premium ones actually have larger image sensors. For example, the iPhone 17, the main camera sensor is a 1/1.3 inch. So the main issue with these cameras is they're not going to be very good in low light. Out and about during the day, you're going to be fine, but indoors, you're probably going to want to have a small flash to help them out. Bridge cameras are an excellent way to get a long telephoto zoom. Many of these will have an equivalent zoom range over 1,000 millimeters when compared to full frame. That's going to be very appealing to anyone that wants to shoot birds. And any of these cameras will outshoot a D5200 with a 55 to 300 millimeter lens. It's got an equivalent focal length of 450, so you're getting 2 or 3 times the amount with these. I'm going to start with the Canon PowerShot SX60HS. It was the same camera I recommended for under $200, and that is because it has RAW support and the other cameras I'm going to mention don't. That's going to be important if you want to post-process your images and get a little bit more out of them, but if you just want JPEGs, that's fine. There's also the Nikon P610. There's the Panasonic FZ200. I recommended that in the under 200 video. It also has RAW support, and if you're lucky, you might be able to track down an original Sony RX10. With any of the point and shoots, you're going to want to figure out how to either force the flash or use fill flash. That's going to give you the look everyone wants these cameras for. If you're feeling lucky, I would go looking for a Sony RX100. It has a 1-inch sensor, which is going to be better in low light, and honestly, I think it probably has the best tech out of any of the point and shoots. The rest I'm going to go overall premium point and shoots, but they have 1/1.7-inch sensors, so they're basically cell phone-like. The Canon PowerShot S100 is going to be great if you want a really small camera. Weighs less than 200 grams, and it's the lightest one I'm going to mention. Because by comparison, the Canon PowerShot G15 weighs 352 grams, making it significantly heavier. And I also find that that model in particular is overpriced because of everyone's interest in the Canon G7X cameras. Then there is the Nikon Coolpix P7700, Panasonic Lumix LX7, and Olympus XZ2. And other than the Sony, I wouldn't get too caught up in trying to get any specific model. Look for all of them. Find one that is in good condition and is a good deal, and just go with that. You don't need to stress out about it. Camcorders are particularly boring. They really got slammed by cell phones, and the rate of release really dropped off. They're going to be the same as my recommendations in the previous video. You're going to look for a Sony CX405 or CX445. And with Canon, there's the Canon HF-R800, but the R700 and R600 are basically the same camera. And finally, there are the action cameras. You should have no problem finding a DJI Action 5 Pro, and that would probably be my choice. There is the DJI Osmo Nano, which I am not a fan of because it has a built-in internal battery, which means it's destined to be e-waste. If you want a 360 camera, there is the Insta360 X3. And finally, you might be able to find a GoPro Hero 13 Black, and if not, the 12 should be readily available for under $300. And that'll do it for this video. I am going through. Next will be cameras under $400. I don't know if I need to update my $500 or $1,000 videos, but I'll continue to go through and try to give you the information you need to find a good deal on whatever type of camera you're looking for.